Kyle stood atop a rugged ridge, the wind whipping through his dark hair as he gazed down at the colony of Auron 7. The vibrant settlement sprawled across the valley, its colorful domes and bustling marketplaces starkly contrasting with the ominous shadows cast by the Zeltharian warships hovering in the sky. Their sleek, metallic forms glimmered under the distant stars, a haunting reminder of the threat they posed. Cale's heart raced, not from fear, but from the weight of his past, a tapestry of battles fought and lives saved, all of which had led him to this precipice. He clenched his jaw, recalling the stories whispered among the colonies about his legendary combat skills. They had called him a warrior, a savior. But the truth was far more complex. "What do they expect of me?" he murmured to himself, his voice barely rising above the howling wind. As he shifted his gaze from the sky to the colony, he noticed the flickering lights in the central square, where families gathered, unaware of the impending doom. "I can't let them suffer," he decided, determination hardening his resolve. Meanwhile, deep within the colony, a group of leaders convened in a dimly lit bunker, the air thick with tension and uncertainty. The room was filled with a mix of humanoids, some with scales, others with feathers, each one reflecting the diverse tapestry of life that Auron 7 had come to embrace. At the head of the table, a tall, silver-skinned being named Eldrin spoke, his voice steady yet strained. "We are running out of time. The Zeltharian fleet will not wait for us to devise a perfect plan. We need Kyle." A shorter figure, with large eyes and a nervous twitch, chimed in. "But what if he fails? He's just one man, and they are an entire armada." The room fell silent, the weight of that statement hanging heavily in the air. Eldrin leaned forward, his expression fierce. "Kyle is our only hope. Legends don't arise from comfort. They are forged in the fires of battle. If we can rally him to our cause, we might stand a chance." The leaders exchanged worried glances, but deep down, they knew the truth. Kyle was their best and perhaps only chance of survival. Just then, the door creaked open, and Kyle entered the bunker. The atmosphere shifted instantly, a blend of admiration and apprehension washing over the leaders. They rose to their feet, instinctively acknowledging his presence, their eyes wide with expectation. "Kyle!" Eldrin exclaimed. "Thank the stars you're here. We need your guidance." Kyle nodded, his gaze sweeping over the faces before him. "I've seen the Zeltharians before. They are not to be underestimated. But I will protect this colony. You have my word." His voice was firm, yet a flicker of doubt crossed his mind as he scanned the room. "Do you truly believe that you can turn the tide?" asked Mira, a humanoid with blue skin and sharp features, her voice quivering slightly. "They are relentless. They won't stop until they've crushed us." Kyle's brow furrowed. He could sense the deeper fears lurking beneath their words. "We will fight together. I've faced battles before, and I won't let you down." He stepped closer, looking each leader in the eye. "But I need to know everything you have about their movements, their strategies. We must prepare." Eldrin nodded, his expression softening. "We have gathered intel, but it has been scattered and disjointed. If we combine our knowledge, we can create a plan." Kale's heart sank as he felt an unsettling energy in the room. "What else is bothering you?" he pressed, sensing that more lay beneath the surface. Mira exchanged glances with the others before speaking hesitantly. "There are rumors, whispers among the colonists. Some believe that there is more at stake than just this colony. They fear the Zeltharians have a hidden agenda, one that could change the fate of the galaxy." The weight of those words hung in the air, and Kale felt a chill run down his spine. "Whatever their agenda is, we will face it together," he said, his voice steady. "But I need your trust and your resolve. The fight for Auron 7 has only just begun." As the leaders nodded in agreement, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was about to unfold, not just against the Zeltharians, but against the shadows of doubt lurking within the hearts of those he had vowed to protect. With a determined heart, he prepared himself for the challenges ahead, unaware of the unexpected alliances and shocking truths that awaited him. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange hue across the sky, Cale stood in the training yard, his heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and determination. Around him, the local militia gathered, their faces illuminated by the fading light. They were a patchwork of different species, each one eager yet apprehensive, clutching makeshift weapons, their hands trembling with the weight of the impending conflict. Cale's presence alone managed to inject a glimmer of hope into their hearts. "Listen up!" he called out, his voice booming through the twilight. "I know many of you have never faced a Zeltharian ship in battle, but I promise you, fear will only hold you back. You must embrace your strength and fight for your home." One of the militia members, a tall, blue-skinned creature with long antennae, stepped forward. "But Kyle, what if we fail? What if they overpower us?" Kyle could see the doubt etched on the young warrior's face. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a more personal tone. "Failure is not an option. We are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for our families, our friends, and our very existence. Each strike you make, every step you take, will be a step toward freedom. Trust in yourselves, as I trust in you." With a deep breath, Kyle drew his combat blade, the weapon glinting in the dim light. "Now, let's train." The militia followed suit, their resolve hardening as they practiced under Cale's watchful eye. He guided them through combat techniques, sharing tales of his past encounters with various alien species. "When I faced the Varnax rebels on Zentar Prime, I was outnumbered too," he recounted, demonstrating a swift maneuver that sent a nearby training dummy flying. "But we used the terrain to our advantage, striking when they least expected it. Remember, it's not always about strength, it's about strategy." As the night deepened, laughter mingled with the sounds of clashing weapons and the thud of feet against the ground, the tension beginning to ease as the militia bonded over shared stories and training. Cale felt a flicker of pride. These warriors were not just soldiers, they were a community. Just then, a shadow flitted across the entrance to the training yard. Cale turned, instinctively gripping his blade tighter. Emerging from the darkness was a figure that made the air around him grow still. Zira, the Zeltharian, stepped forward, her luminescent skin casting a faint glow in the night. Cale's heart raced, and he instinctively positioned himself between her and the militia. "Stay back," he warned, his voice low and steady. "What do you want?" Zira raised her hands in a gesture of peace. "I come with no weapon, Cale. I seek to help you." The warriors around Cale exchanged wary glances, their weapons still at the ready. "Help us," Cale echoed, skepticism dripping from his words. "Why would a Zeltharian want to help humans?" "I have information," Zira replied, her voice smooth yet urgent. "Intel about the fleet's weaknesses, their strategies. I can make a difference in your fight." Kyle eyed her suspiciously, weighing her words against the stories he had heard of her kind. "And why should I trust you? You're one of them." Zira stepped closer, her dark eyes locking onto his. "Because I'm not like the others. I did not agree with their methods. I want to see this colony thrive, not fall." He could see the sincerity in her expression, yet doubt gnawed at him. The Zeltharians were known for their cunning, and he had to remain vigilant. "You expect me to believe that just like that?" he challenged. "What's your angle?" Zira took a deep breath, her posture unwavering. "I am here because I believe there is a better way. Together, we can turn the tide against the Zeltharians. I can lead you to their vulnerabilities." The tension in the yard thickened as Cale considered her proposition. He looked around at the militia, their faces a mixture of hope and fear. "All right," he finally said, his voice firm. "But know this. One wrong move, and I will not hesitate to strike." Zira nodded, a hint of relief washing over her features. "Thank you, Cale. You won't regret this." As they began to strategize, Cale felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. Perhaps this unexpected alliance could shift the balance in their favor. But the shadows of doubt lingered in his mind, reminding him that trust was a fragile thing, especially in a war-torn galaxy where allegiance could change with the tide. The night wore on, filled with plans and possibilities, yet the underlying tension remained, a reminder that their fate was still uncertain. The dawn broke over Auron 7, casting long shadows across the colony as Kale stood at the forefront of the makeshift battalion. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation and anxiety. Word had spread quickly. The Zeltharian fleet was readying for an assault, and the colonists clung to the hope that Kale's strategies would lead them to victory. The warriors, a motley crew of various species, looked to him for guidance, their eyes reflecting both admiration and fear. "Remember, we strike hard and fast," Kyle instructed, his voice steady despite the tumultuous emotions swirling within him. "Zyra's intel is our key. We exploit their weaknesses, disrupt their command, and we do it together." A chorus of affirmations echoed back at him. The militia, bolstered by Kale's presence, readied their weapons. Zyra, standing slightly apart, observed the scene with a mix of pride and trepidation. Her heart raced, not just from the imminent conflict, but from the weight of her double life. She had come to respect these humans, yet the fear of how they might react if they discovered her true intentions loomed over her like a storm cloud. "Kale!" a voice called out, pulling his attention. It was Raylan, the colony's chief engineer, a stout humanoid with a face marked by years of hard work. "We're set. The charges are rigged on the ships as you instructed. We just need the signal." "Good. Stay sharp," Kyle replied, giving Raylan a firm nod. He felt a surge of responsibility. These lives depended on him, and he couldn't afford to fail them. The battle commenced with an explosion that rocked the sky. The Zeltharian ships loomed ominously above, their metallic hulls glinting in the sunlight as they unleashed torrents of energy down upon the colony. Kale led the charge, his blade gleaming as he sprinted toward the chaos, the militia close behind him. They moved as one, a well-oiled machine of diverse races united for survival. "Now!" Kyle shouted. And at his command, the first wave of charges detonated, sending a shockwave through the ground. Explosions bloomed like flowers, each one a testament to their determination. The Zeltharians were momentarily disoriented, and Kyle seized the opportunity. "Push forward," he yelled, feeling adrenaline surge through his veins. He engaged an advancing Zeltharian soldier, the alien's elongated limbs striking out with lethal precision. Kale ducked and countered, his blade slicing through the air with practiced ease. The Zeltharian fell, and Kale moved on, his eyes scanning for Zyra amidst the fray. As the battle raged, the tide seemed to shift in favor of the colonists. Zyra fought alongside them, her movements fluid and deadly. She had become a force to be reckoned with, her Zeltharian agility complementing the raw power of the human fighters. In a moment of respite, Kyle caught her gaze. "We're doing it!" he shouted over the noise, his voice filled with exhilaration. But just as victory felt within reach, a piercing alarm shrieked across the battlefield. The ground trembled, and a colossal Zeltharian warship descended, its underbelly glowing ominously, revealing a weapon of unimaginable power. The colonists stared in horror as the ship unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, tearing through their defenses like paper. "Fall back!" Kyle shouted, his heart racing. "Regroup and cover the civilians!" "Kale!" Zyra called out, her voice strained as she fought off another Zeltharian soldier. "We need to disable that weapon, now! If we don't, we'll lose everything!" "I know," Kale responded, his mind racing. "But how?" "We can't take it head-on!" Zyra's eyes darted around, calculating. "There's a maintenance shaft on the side. If we can reach it, I can access their systems and disable it from the inside." Kale's resolve hardened. "Then that's our plan. Let's move!" With a renewed sense of purpose, Kale and Zyra led a small group toward the warship's side, dodging incoming fire and leveraging the chaos of battle to their advantage. As they reached the maintenance shaft, Kyle paused, turning to face the warriors who had followed them. "This is it. We either stop this now or lose everything we've fought for. Let's do it!" one of the militia shouted, and they surged forward, united by their shared determination. As they descended into the depths of the warship, the sounds of battle faded into the background. Cale felt the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on him. The path to victory was fraught with danger, and the fate of Auron 7 hung precariously in the balance. With Zira by his side, he steeled himself for the confrontation that awaited them. In the midst of the chaos, Cale and Zira found themselves cornered in an abandoned outpost, the walls crumbling and the air thick with dust and tension. The distant sounds of battle echoed outside, a cacophony of explosions and cries that served as a grim reminder of the urgency of their situation. Kyle leaned against a cold metal wall, his breath coming in quick bursts as he tried to steady himself. Zira, standing nearby, scanned the area, her sharp eyes reflecting both determination and uncertainty. "We need to come up with a plan," Kyle said, his voice steady despite the chaos outside. "If we don't act fast, the Zeltharians will regroup and finish what they started." Zira turned to him, her expression softening as she absorbed the weight of his words. "I didn't expect to end up here with you, Kyle. I thought I'd be gathering intel. And then, what? Report back to my people?" She sighed, her angular features shadowed in the dim light. "I never wanted this." Cale studied her closely, the flickering lights casting shadows across her face. "Then why did you come here? Why help us at all?" His question hung heavy in the air, a challenge wrapped in curiosity. Zira took a deep breath, her silver skin glistening even in the low light. "I was sent to spy on you and your colony," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But then I saw the resilience of your people, the way they fought for each other. It changed something in me." She looked into his eyes, vulnerability peeking through her stoic exterior. "I realized that your fight is not so different from mine. I want to protect my home, just as you protect yours." Cale felt a flicker of understanding, a connection forming between them that transcended their species. "We're not so different then," he said, nodding. "But we have to act quickly. If we're to disable their weapon, we must get inside the Zeltharian command ship." Zira's eyes lit with determination. "I know the schematics. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads directly to the weapon's core. It's risky, but it might just work." She paused, gauging his reaction. "Are you willing to trust me?" Kyle hesitated, the weight of her question heavy on his shoulders. Trust was a rare commodity in the universe he inhabited, and yet, standing in that dimly lit outpost with her, he felt a strange sense of hope. "If we're going to do this, we do it together," he finally replied, his voice resolute. "No secrets," Zira nodded, her expression firm. "Together, then." They moved swiftly through the darkened corridors of the outpost, their footsteps echoing softly. Cale led the way, his senses heightened, ever aware of the dangers lurking just outside. Zira followed closely, her agility and grace evident even in the tense atmosphere. As they navigated the labyrinth of hallways, they shared snippets of their lives, stories of home, of battles fought, and the dreams that fueled their fights. "On my home planet," Zira began, "we have a festival to celebrate the unity of our clans. It's a time when rivalries are set aside, and we remember that we're all part of something greater." Cale smiled at the thought. "We have something similar on Earth, a celebration of our independence. It's a reminder of our strength and our resolve." He glanced at her, a warmth blooming in his chest. "Perhaps one day we could celebrate together." Zira chuckled softly, a sound that surprised them both. A human and a Zeltharian sharing a feast. That would be a sight to behold. The humor lightened the tension between them, if only for a moment. But as they reached the access point to the maintenance tunnel, the gravity of their mission settled back in. The entrance was obscured by debris, a testament to the conflict raging outside. Cale looked at Zira, his heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. "Are you ready?" Zira nodded, determination etched on her face. Ready as I'll ever be. As they squeezed through the narrow opening, the sounds of battle grew fainter, replaced by the sound of their own hearts racing. The tunnel was dark and damp, and they moved cautiously, the stakes higher than ever. They could hear the distant hum of the Zeltharian weapon, a reminder that time was running out. Once we reach the core, we'll need to disable the power source, Zira instructed, her voice low. It's heavily guarded, but I can create a diversion. You'll have to act fast. Kyle's resolve hardened. We'll do whatever it takes. He glanced at her, a sense of camaraderie blossoming in the darkness. I trust you, Zira. In that moment, as they pressed deeper into the belly of the enemy ship, they both understood the true weight of their alliance. The galaxy was vast and filled with danger, but perhaps together they could forge a path to a future where their worlds could coexist. Time was short, and the fate of many hung in the balance. But as they moved forward, a flicker of hope ignited within them, a hope that transcended the boundaries of their species and the conflicts of their past. Kyle and Zira moved stealthily through the dimly lit corridors of the Zeltharian command ship, the metallic hum of the engines resonating around them. The air was thick with tension, and every shadow seemed to harbor a threat. Kyle's heart raced, not just from the adrenaline of the impending confrontation, but also from the growing bond he felt with Zira. They navigated the ship with a fluidity that spoke to their newfound trust in each other. "Stay close," Kyle whispered, his voice barely above a murmur, as they rounded a corner. The harsh blue light of the Zeltharian technology illuminated their path, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. Zira nodded, her expression focused and determined. "I never imagined I'd be doing this," she replied, her tone laced with a mixture of fear and excitement. "Infiltrating my own people's ship. I hope we can find what we need before they catch us." Kyle offered her a reassuring glance. "We will. Just stick to the plan and watch my back." They pressed on, moving deeper into the ship's core. The sounds of distant voices echoed through the corridors, punctuated by the clanking of armored boots, a reminder of the ever-present danger lurking just beyond their sight. Kale's mind raced as they approached what appeared to be the heart of the ship, a heavily fortified chamber pulsating with energy. As they reached the chamber door, Kyle turned to Zira. "This is it. Are you ready?" Zira took a deep breath, her resolve evident in the steely glint of her eyes. "More than ever. If we can access their data, we might uncover the truth behind their plans." With a swift motion, Kyle activated the door's control panel, and it hissed open, revealing a room filled with advanced technology and a vast array of screens displaying streams of data. The walls were lined with holographic projectors, and the air buzzed with energy. "Look at this," Kale said, stepping inside, his eyes widening at the sight. He approached one of the screens, scrolling through the information with growing urgency. "They're planning an invasion of Earth. This goes beyond anything we imagined." Zira moved beside him, her fingers flying over the console as she began deciphering the data. "They intend to use Earth as a launching point for a larger campaign across the galaxy. This is not just about conquering Oron 7. They want to dominate everything." Kale clenched his fists, anger surging through him. "We have to stop this. If we can disable their weapons and relay this information back to the colony, we might have a chance." Just as they began to formulate a plan, the chamber's entrance exploded open, and the imposing figure of the Zeltharian commander stormed in, flanked by armored guards. Kale instinctively stepped in front of Zira, ready to fight. "So, the little human thinks he can challenge me," the commander sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "And you, Zira, I should have known you'd betray your own people for a fleeting alliance." "Betray?" Kale shot back, his voice firm. "Zira isn't the traitor here. You've been manipulating us all along." Zira's expression hardened, her gaze unwavering. "I was never a traitor," she declared, stepping forward. "I've seen the truth, and it's you who's lying. This is about power, not survival." The commander laughed, a sound filled with arrogance. "You really think you can turn against your own kind, Zira? You were a pawn in my game, and now you will pay the price." As the guards advanced, Kale and Zira instinctively fell into a defensive stance, their movements synchronized as they prepared to fight. Kale's heart raced, not just with the thrill of battle, but with the realization that he had grown to trust her, even in the face of danger. "Focus on the guards," Kale instructed, his voice steady. "We can't let them overwhelm us." "Agreed," Zira responded, her eyes scanning the room for potential escape routes. "But we need to disable their communications first. If we don't, they'll call for reinforcements." Kyle nodded, determination etched on his face. "Let's do this." As they engaged in combat, their chemistry intensified, each move complementing the other. Kale fought with fierce precision, while Zira's agility and speed proved invaluable. They moved as one, their bond deepening with every blow exchanged. But as they pressed onward, the commander's laughter echoed through the chamber, taunting them. "You think you can win? This ship is a fortress, and you're merely intruders." "No!" Kyle gritted his teeth as he parried a strike. "We're the ones who will expose your lies and stop your invasion." The battle raged on, but Kale couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The stakes had never been higher, and with the fate of Earth hanging in the balance, he knew they had to find a way to outsmart the Zeltharian commander before it was too late. The atmosphere in the control room of the Zeltharian command ship was thick with tension as Kale and Zira stood side by side, their eyes locked on the imposing figure of the Zeltharian commander. His tall, slender form towered over them, exuding an air of superiority. The flickering lights from the consoles illuminated his dark, scaly skin, casting shadows that danced ominously across the walls. Kale's heart raced, his mind racing with the implications of what lay ahead. "You think you can stop us?" the commander taunted, his voice smooth and dripping with malice. "Your colony will burn, and soon Earth will follow. The Zeltharians will claim what is rightfully ours, and you will be forgotten." Kyle clenched his fists, a surge of anger coursing through him. "You're underestimating humanity. We've faced worse than your kind and come out stronger." Zira, standing beside him, felt the weight of the moment pressing down. She could feel Kale's determination, but doubt lingered in her mind. Could she trust him fully? The commander smirked, sensing their hesitation. "You're in no position to negotiate, human. Your bravado will be your undoing." Before Kale could respond, a sudden explosion rocked the ship, sending a jolt through the floor. Alarms blared, the lights flickering violently as emergency protocols activated. Kale stumbled, instinctively reaching out to steady Zira. "We need to get out of here," he shouted over the cacophony, but the commander's laughter rang out, cutting through the chaos. "You think an explosion will save you? The ship is set to self-destruct. You're all going to die here." Panic surged through Zira, but she quickly masked it with resolve. "No! There's a way to reverse the weapon's effects. I have technology that can help us." Her voice was firm, fueled by a newfound determination. She glanced at Kyle, her eyes pleading. "But we need to work together. Now." Kyle hesitated, torn between his instincts and the trust he had begun to place in her. He recalled the stories of betrayal, the countless lives lost to treachery. But there was something different about Zira, something genuine. "Fine," he said, nodding sharply. "Let's take him down first." With a shared understanding, they charged at the commander, who was momentarily distracted by the alarms. Kyle swung his fist, landing a solid punch against the Zeltharian's jaw. The commander staggered back, surprised by the human's speed and ferocity. Zira followed up with a swift kick, targeting the commander's knee, bringing him down to their level. "You think you can overpower me?" he growled, regaining his footing. "I will crush you both." As they fought, the ship's interior exploded with energy, flickering lights and blaring alarms creating a chaotic backdrop. Kale and Zira moved in tandem, blocking and countering the commander's strikes, their partnership growing more fluid with each passing moment. Kyle felt a surge of adrenaline. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for the future of their worlds. Zyra leaped back, dodging a particularly vicious strike from the commander. "The control panel! I need to access it!" she shouted, pointing toward a console glowing with red warnings. Kale nodded, covering her as she darted forward, fingers flying over the controls. The commander roared in frustration, lunging at her. "You cannot stop what is already in motion." "Watch me," Zyra retorted, her eyes focused on the screen. "I can reverse the energy flow. We can turn the weapon against them." As she worked frantically, Kyle kept the commander at bay, feeling the sweat trickle down his brow. He could see Zyra's determination mirrored in her movements. "Just a little longer," he urged, throwing a hard knee into the commander's abdomen. Finally, Zyra's voice rang clear. "It's done! I'm rerouting the energy!" A surge of power filled the room, and the weapon's ominous hum shifted into a vibrant pulse. The commander looked at them in horror, realizing too late what was happening. "You fools! You'll destroy us all!" Kale and Zyra exchanged a glance filled with unspoken understanding. "Not if we work together," Kale replied, his voice steady. Then, with a motion of mutual trust, they activated the weapon, redirecting its energy back toward the Zeltharian fleet. As the ship shook violently, Kyle felt a wave of hope wash over him. They had turned the tide. The Zeltharians had manipulated humanity's fears for centuries, but now, amid chaos and uncertainty, true strength emerged, not from technology or weaponry, but from the alliances forged in the crucible of battle. Together, they would save the colony, and perhaps something far more profound would blossom between their worlds.